Shortly after, Alice came to check on Matthew, bringing her dog. The dog began barking intensely at the closet door, which angered Matthew slightly, and he told Alice to leave immediately. Later that night, as everyone slept soundly, Matthew retrieved tools from his in-laws' shed. He wrapped Stan's body in a mat, and with his slender build, he exerted all his strength to push the bundle from the upper floor. He then carried it to the beach, planning to sink the body. Matthew found heavy metal weights to submerge Stan in the sea, and the gruesome scenario finally began. After successfully executing his plan, Matthew rushed back, but strangely, the boat's engine stalled. Soon, a marine police patrol boat appeared on the water. Panicked, Matthew immediately dove to the seabed, fearing discovery, and swam desperately toward the shore. The morning sun had already arrived. Matthew hurried back home before the household woke up, wanting to appear as if he hadn't gone anywhere. He quickly got into bed, but Alice was already awake and silently wondered where Matthew had been all night. Later that afternoon, Matthew woke up and looked for Alice, thinking she might be at the beach. And sure enough, Alice was engrossed in reading a novel. She was startled to see a wrapped bundle floating by the rocks. However, it was just Matthew's nightmare. He then took a refreshing shower and quickly handed the stolen collector's pistol to Arnaud. Arnaud was thrilled, knowing the antique pistol's high value. He then revealed he was Leon's son. He had never visited his father when Leon was alive, but now that his father's diary had become a best-selling novel, he was claiming kinship and extorting money from Matthew. Upon returning home, Matthew was shocked by Alice's changed demeanor. She accused him of cheating the previous night, which Matthew vehemently denied. Alice also pointed out numerous calls on Matthew's phone, assuming they were from another woman, when in fact they were from Arnaud. Matthew desperately tried to explain that she was the only woman he loved. He had always dreamed of her since the very first sight, but he was no one back then. Then black sand changed everything. They started to get to know each other, and that was the happiest day of his life. Matthew finally confessed that he wasn't a great writer and that the novel wasn't truly his. He had only been afraid that if Alice knew the truth, she would leave him. But to his relief, Alice still loved Matthew, even knowing he wasn't the brilliant writer she had believed him to be. Their love, she said, was true and needed no reason. They reconciled and spent the rest of the day together. Days later, Matthew found inspiration to write a novel about his own story. It began with his past as a nobody, his falling in love with a high society girl, his intense struggles, and everything that had happened in his life, including the murder and the lies he had experienced. Of course, he changed all the character names so Alice and everyone else wouldn't suspect it was his real story. Matthew wanted to prove that he could write a good novel with his own hand, while Alice continued to encourage him never to give up. Finally, the novel was complete. He titled it False Pretenses and confidently wrote his name as the author. However, when he went to find Alice on the beach, he instead saw that the police had discovered Stan's body in the sea. Panic surged through him. His problems seemed endless. The police soon arrived at their house and informed the residents that skin had been found under Stan's fingernails, suggesting Stan had scratched his assailant. The police requested that every member of the household, including neighbors and anyone known to Stan, undergo a DNA test in Paris on Sunday. As if that wasn't enough, Arnaud called Matthew again, demanding more money. Matthew grew increasingly frustrated. He was in a dilemma. If he took the DNA test, he would surely be caught for Stan's murder and sent to prison. He began frantically thinking of a way to escape this impossible situation. The next day, Alice and her parents left to meet Stan's parents in Paris for the funeral. Matthew couldn't join them, feigning a meeting with his publisher. He then gave Alice the novel about his life story, asking her to read it, and promised to meet her in Paris for the DNA test on Sunday. It was time for his meeting with Arnaud, who continued to extort money from him. Matthew planned to harm Arnaud by inserting a coin into the seatbelt buckle slot, hoping to disable it. Arnaud, feeling superior, threatened to harm Alice and her family if Matthew didn't give him the money, even planning to take antique items from their home himself. Matthew, now utterly disgusted, crashed the car into some rocks. Fortunately, Matthew survived, but Arnaud had perished. His seatbelt clearly failed. Matthew then conceived a desperate plan to escape the DNA test and imprisonment. He moved Arnaud's body to the driver's seat and put his watch, wallet, and phone on him, hoping everyone would believe Matthew himself had died. The risk, of course, was that he would be presumed dead and could never live with Alice again. To ensure the scenario's perfection, he doused the car and the body with gasoline and set them ablaze. Matthew then vanished, with the entire world believing he had died in the accident.